you very much for inviting me. Thank you, Christine Sharp, for inviting me. That's been great. And Christine, yes, sorry, Cynthia, invited me tonight. Thank you. And she was on our Peers on Pages as a co-facilitator with me one time. So that was great. And I've had some other writers that she knows, and it's been a great opportunity. And it's a great opportunity to meet with you all today as well. And so, yes, as mentioned, I wrote a book called Overcoming the Impossible, A Life of Trials and Triumphs. And that's me. So it was really important for me when I made the cover that my chair was in the background and not in the foreground. My point was that a chair is part of me, but it's not all of me. And so that's why I had it photographed like that. So I'm going to take my glasses off to read because I actually see better without my glasses on. So I'm going to read from a chapter called What Do You Mean I Can't Drive? Oh, this is a memoir, by the way, about my life thus far. Oh, and there's a picture of me behind the wheel, so you can see that. Okay. Driving would open up an entirely new world for me. I'm no different from anyone else, and getting my driver's license was just another feat I wanted to master. While some might say I have already accomplished much in my life, I still feel like I need to prove myself that I'm just like everyone else, and part of that is being able to drive. One evening while visiting my parents, and as we were eating dinner together, I made an announcement. I decided I want to get my driver's license. My sister, who was also visiting that evening, looked up suddenly. My mother's response was, "Oh, good gravy." My father said slowly, "Okay." And my analytical sister said, "Do you know how you're going to get that driver's license? Have you thought this through?" "No, I don't know at all the details, but one day I will drive." I had no idea that this process would take me 5.5 years. It was late 1989 when I called GF Strong, a rehabilitation hospital in Vancouver, BC. So I decided I would call them and ask what I would need to do to get my license. They told me I had to get my doctor to refer me to see one of the GF Strong's doctors. The GF Strong doctor would either recommend me or decline me from getting driving program. This procedure is lovingly described as red tape. Hurdle number 1. Pay attention to the hurdle numbers. This was only the beginning, but I was already surprised at the process. Okay, let me get this straight. I need to get permission to get my driver's license because I'm a person with a disability. Yes, that's right, dear. People tend to call me dear a lot. It ticks me off because it's very condescending. So let me get this straight. Able-bodied people can just go into a motor vehicle branch and write the test and driver's test, and then he or she gets his license. Well, yes, that's right. Well, no discrimination here, I thought to myself. So I decided to play their game. Off I went to the family doctor to get my referral. Several months later, I got the call to come in for my medical exam. I was thinking, what type of medical exam could you possibly give to someone to get a license? Would you believe it was a psychological medical exam? But I didn't realize that was about to happen until I started speaking to the doctor. Once my name was called, I was escorted into an examination room. After we exchanged pleasantries, he asked me why do I wanted to drive. How absurd, I thought. Why does anybody want to drive? Obviously, I want to get around, I said with the assertiveness. Yes, I understand that, but there are other forms of transportation. You can take the bus, handy-dart, now the sky train. Why do you want to drive? Then I realized I had to convince this person that I had to drive in order to live a more normal life. Great, I thought. Here we go with the mind games. I need a bona fide reason to get what I want. I want more out of life. I want to continue with my education. I don't want to sit in the pouring rain waiting for Handy or any other bus. I want to continue with my education to get my certificate in marketing management. If I can drive, I do not have to depend on anybody to take me to and from places. I could also go to church on Sundays. I wouldn't have to ask for volunteers from the church to drive me. I would like to join the choir and participate in other activities, but I can't because I cannot drive. My parents moved to Merritt, and my sister is studying full time at UBC. I have only myself to depend on. I said, I see, he said. He got up and turned to me, my head from side to side. Then he checked my ears, looked at my throat. He felt my neck, and then he said, well, you have limited side view. You can't see your blind spot on the side of the van. Well, how do truck drivers see the side of their 18-wheeler vans? I asked. Oh, they have large mirrors on the sides. Problem solved. After all, if scientists can send a man to the moon, surely they can come up with the technology for people like me to drive a van. I continued to say, I'm not going to give up. Okay, he said, I'll recommend you. However, I'm not sure how they are going to test you to see what type of equipment you will need because of your short stature. Several weeks later, I had an appointment with Barry, the driving instructor. He needed to check my range of motion to see if my hands and arms were strong enough to drive. He also needed to check the dexterity in my hands and fingers. Next, he had his team wanted to put me in the back of in a vehicle to see if I could drive. I was led to the parking lot where a car was waiting for me to turn on the ignition for the first time. Guys, that's a car, not a van. I can't get into a car. Oh, we know. We don't have a van, but don't worry. I'll pick you up and place you on the seat. Yeah, great, but I'm short. I won't be able to see over the steering wheel. Yes, we're going to get a pillow, or maybe a few pillows for you to sit on. This is just to check things out. I was whisked off my wheelchair, and put into the car on several pillows in the driver's seat. And just as I suspected, not only could I not see over the steering wheel, but it was also pushing into my stomach. I was having trouble breathing. This was simply impossible because I couldn't even see the road, never mind the speedometer, because the steering wheel blocked my vision. After a few chuckles, Billy put me back in my chair. Well, I knew this was going to be a challenge because it would be difficult for me to be assessed since I could not sit in a regular car. Hurdle number 2 was explained to me. I need a van for me to try, so that Barry and his team could send a report to Victoria, where the office of the superintendent of motor vehicles is located, and that they would give me permission to drive. Hurdle number 3, because of my unique situation, I was going to have to prove that I can drive in order to get permission from Victoria to convert my own van prior to getting my license. Wow. Buy my own van. I knew that's what I wanted, but I didn't think I would learn to drive using my own van. That thought was just thrilling to me, but how much was it going to cost? While talking to Barry, I asked him, and the answer made me almost speechless. The estimate was between $20,000 and $30,000 just for the equipment. There's also the cost of the van that can add up to another $20,000 to $30,000, depending on the type of the van. Did I mention money was hurdle number 4? Well, I needed between 40 and 60 grand just for independence. It was a big figure, but money wasn't going to stop me either. In order to proceed, Barry still needed to find a vehicle for me to test drive. In the meantime, I needed to go to the local vehicle branch and write a test to get my learner's license. The license needed to be continually up to date so that it would not be any delays once Barry found a van for me to test drive. Oh, how I hated exams, but at least I can study for this one, and it would be worth the effort. Off I went back home to study, and then after a few weeks, I booked the appointment to write the exam. I went to the motor vehicle branch in Vancouver. I wheeled up to the tall counter and said the following: "Hello, anybody there?" As I could not see who was sitting behind the counter, a woman stood up and bent over and said, "Yes, how can I help you? I've come to write my learner's license test. I'm going to get a van. I'm going to drive a van." By the time my number was called, they had set up a desk for me to write the exam. As usual, I was so very nervous about writing the exam, I didn't know if I was going to pass. A learner's permit is only valid for 6 months from the time when I took my exam. Therefore, even passing the exam would not guarantee me driving license because I did not have a vehicle to test drive. By now, it was the summer of 1990, and there was still no vehicle in sight. 6 months were almost up, so I would have to write the test again. But then the unthinkable happened. As you read previously, assuming you had, I was hit by a car, and it took me 7 months to recover. Once I recovered, I was in full swing to get my license again. So I called Barry and told him I renewed my learner's permit yet again, and I was dying to sit behind the wheel again. Barry told me that he did not find a van yet. By now, I was starting to get frustrated because it was taking a lot longer than expected. Barry did not know when I would have a van and just told me to be patient. Sometimes I began to lose hope that I would ever drive, and other days I just told myself not to give up. I prayed, cried, and asked God that if I wasn't supposed to get my license, then please take the desire away from my heart. But please don't crush my spirit. I had 2 options: give up or continue. Frederick Douglass seems to describe my challenge the best. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. My desire did not disappear, but kept me on fire to drive. I finally realized that once I get my driver's license, it would make all the difference in the world for others with profound disabilities. Every 6 months, I would go again to the motor vehicle branch and renew my license. Then one day in the spring of 1992, I got a long-awaited call from Barry. A hospital was found in Los Angeles, California, and they were fully equipped to assess people with disabilities that wanted to drive a van. Great! I almost screamed into the ear. However, there was another challenge. Because of the riots in LA, the van would not leave the state. My heart sank again as I watched the news. Months went by until I got another call from Barry. It was now the summer of 92. And finally, I would finally get assessed. Not so fast, though, for those from another snag. The union representing the employees of a rehabilitation hospital in Vancouver held a strike. Pickets were up, and the van was turned around, never to come back to Vancouver again. Hurdle number 6. My heart sank again, but I continued to pray and ask God to move mountain and take away my desire because this is really getting ridiculous. I thought maybe he finally had time to address my problem because I got another call. This time, we would go on the road trip to the University of Washington. They had a fully equipped van with hand controls. A friend of mine, Cheryl, agreed to come with me and Barry. I'm just going to read for 5 more minutes and then I'll end it. Funny thing can happen while you're driving. An instructor drives you and a friend down the highway. While we were driving and chatting, All of a sudden, we heard a siren behind the van. Barry pulled over and calmly asked the police officer, "What seems to be the trouble?" Apparently, he was speeding, and Barry felt a bit embarrassed. After the officer had a little chat with him, we pulled away from the curb. Several minutes of silence ensued before he finally said, "I just wanted to show you what not to do once you get your driver's license." We all burst out in hysterical laughter. We arrived at the motel, freshened up, and headed to the University of Washington. We were given a grand tour of the driving school facility, and Barry talked a shop with the driving instructor. Next, off to the parking garage at the moment I've been waiting for the past 3 years. I could barely contain my excitement. My heart was pounding heavily in my chest. My mouth was dry as I was feeling nervous and anxious at the same time. For the first time in my life, I drove my chair to the van and parked in front of the steering wheel. Wow, this is so cool. I was so excited. The instructor said, "Start the ignition, but first, check where the buttons like windshield wipers and a turning signal are." This was so thrilling. Now we did discover a little problem once again. As we all know, I'm a little bit petite. Luckily, there were some extra pillows, and one was put underneath me. I asked my friend Sherry if she would also wanted to come in the van with me for the first time driving lessons. "No, I think I'll wait out here." "Are you sure?" Billy said and continued, "It might be safer than out there." I laughed and told them I would be fine, but of course I was a bit nervous. I began slowly driving around the parking lot, getting a feel for the minivan, and then I was driving into a small street that goes from one parking lot to another. I remember seeing a big truck go by and started staring at it, and the driving instructor, Sharon, had to pull the wheel away from the truck while she said, "Monica, look at the road, not at the truck, or you will drive right into it." And I'll stop there.